telling the story. So the directions in the Haggadah that we're looking at say, Migalet matzot. You have to open up the covering, take off the covering of the matzot that are in front of the leader of the Seder. Magbia et hakara, you hold up the dish that the matzot are on, v'omer halach ma'anya. So this is the first time that that the storytelling includes a kind of show and tell. And we know that the story is enhanced by that. The children understand more easily if you show them things. So if you tell them that they ate matzot running away from Egypt, that might impress them, it might not. But if you show them the matzah, and then you say, and then we talked about Ma'anya, I'm not going to repeat that now. And Avadim Ayiru Leparo b'Mitzrayim comes after the Arba Kushiyot. Now, why there are Arba Kushiyot? Where they come from, I think that the important thing is to recognize what the importance of the four Kushiyot, which is really important. The first one says, Shebechol haleilot anu ochlim chametz umatzah. On other nights, all other nights, we eat what we want. We had some chametz, some piece of bread, or matzah. We eat what we want. Halayla zeh, we're constricted. Kuloma matzah. We only eat matzah. Now that is certainly a good question. We understand that the Jews ate the matzah when they left Mitzrayim because they were unable to spend the time to make the bread that they really wanted to eat. They didn't want to eat the matzah. So why did the Torah demand of us that we eat matzah for 7 days and avoid absolutely eating chametz? I mean, after all, the Jews leaving Mitzrayim wanted to eat chametz. They wanted to eat the bread. They just couldn't do it. It was something that they were not able to. They weren't able. So why are we so stringent about matzah? Now that's the first question. The other questions are less impressive. Second question is, we eat all kinds of vegetables. I'm not sure that that's even the case, that we eat maror only, exclusively the only vegetable. I mean, we do eat maror, but it's only, today we eat maror midrabanan. It's a rabbinic injunction because in the Torah, the maror goes with the Pesach and the matzah. Okay, that's the second question. The third question is, matbilim, we put something into salted water, and we eat it that way. We don't usually do that when we eat. Okay. So we do it in order to encourage the children to ask. The last question, it should be called Misubin. Misubin means that we eat in the manner of very wealthy and very special kinds of people who eat on a couch. They eat lying. And so we also try to imitate that, sort of to show, again, to show the children or to show whoever's interested in the story that we're about to tell. I mean, okay. Oh, I've got it. I have got it. No, I haven't got it. I thought I had it. Don't have it. So there are questions that the children are encouraged to ask questions and to discover what's happening. As I said, I think the only question that is a really powerful one is Anu ochlim chametz u'matzah shebechol haleilot. All the other nights, we eat what we want. If we want chametz, chametz. If we want matzah, matzah. Halayla hazeh kulo matzah. Tonight we eat only matzah, and that's true. In other words, we can't eat chametz at all. There's a separate injunction in the Torah against eating chametz, and we go to great lengths to ensure that we're not going to be eating chametz. Now, these are the questions that are asked, but the answers to these questions are really the story of Pesach. Now, the first answer begins with the words Avadim Hayiru Leparo b'Mitzrayim. You see those words? I'm sorry, I can't actually. Okay. So the first answer to, or the first start of telling the story, which doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the questions that were asked, is a story of Avadim Hayiru Leparo b'Mitzrayim. And as you know, and as I pointed out, every story has to start from someplace. Where do you start from? Where does the story begin? So answer number one in the Haggadah is Avadim Hayiru Leparo b'Mitzrayim. We were slaves to Paro Mitzrayim. That's what we start from. Not from Yaakov Avinu, not from his children, but after the submission of the children of Yaakov and Yosef in Mitzrayim to the Egyptians. That's the beginning of the story. We became Avadim, and that was the beginning of making us who we are. And that's what it says. We were aware. We were aware. That's the story. We were aware of the fact that it was God who took us out of Mitzrayim with a strong arm and an outstretched arm. Ve'ilu lo hotzi HaKadosh Baruch Hu et avotenu b'Mitzrayim. And if God had not taken us out of Mitzrayim, harei anu baneinu u'bnei baneinu meshubadim hayinu leparo b'Mitzrayim, we would still be there. Anu, we, u'baneinu u'bnei baneinu, there would be no end to it. The Shivut b'Mitzrayim would never end, which is an interesting comment in itself. B'nei baneinu meshubadim hayinu leparo b'Mitzrayim, ba'afilu Kulanu chachamim, kulanu nevonim, kulanu zekenim. Even if we have developed, and we're all chachamim, and we're all nevonim, which is a kind of a chachma in itself, kulanu zekenim, even we would see ourselves, kulanu yodim et Torah, all of us are well versed in Torah. Mitzvah aleinu l'saper b'Yetziat Mitzrayim. In any event, we have this opportunity. I mean, it was what the text is hinting at, is that telling the story is always a new dimension. It's different than knowing something. It's telling what we know. It's transferring the information from a person to another person, from a group to another group. This is something very unique and understandable. V'kol hamarbe l'saper b'Yetziat Mitzrayim harei mishubach. And here the Rambam quotes the Mishnah. Marbe l'saper. The more you talk about it, the more you tell about it, the more you get it, the more you understand it. Right? And that's the first answer to the question that wasn't really asked, which is, what are we doing here? What is it that we're trying to accomplish? So that's Abadim Hayinu Leparo Mitzrayim. Then the Haggadah continues. Sorry.
Rabbi, are you able to scroll down?
No.
Oh.
Not able to scroll. I'm not able to do anything.
I know this new system.
You're on Okay, the second, I will just point out something. The second answer to the question begins with the words Mitchila of the Avodah Zarah Hayu Avotenu. It talks about going back and telling the story to Yaakov and Lavan, to the story of Yaakov and Lavan. I don't understand, maybe stop sharing. None of these buttons work. Oh, I'm sorry. I like the Haggadah a lot.
Can you just read it to us? Maybe?
The point is that the first two responses, which are not responses to the questions that were asked, but the responses that are necessary. And even if you don't ask the question, like what are we doing here, or why is Pesach important to us, or why do we have to eat the matzah and avoid the chametz? I mean, they didn't ask any of those questions. Those questions were not asked. Those questions were not asked, but the answer to the question, go back to Rabbi Shmuel. Go back to Rabbi Shmuel. The Mishnah says, Matachil begnut u'misayem b'shvach. You start off with how it was in the past, how it was at the beginning of the story. What had to be fixed? So the first answer is Avadim Hayiru L'Paro Mitzrayim. The second answer is the Gnut. That's the Hatchala. The beginning is the Gnut. The second answer is Mitchila. Ovdei Avodah Zara Yu Avotenu, that our forefathers came from a world of idolatry. And they were part of that world. So the fact of the matter is that there are two different versions of the story. At the beginning of Maggid, one is Mitchila Avadim Hayiru L'Paro Mitzrayim. We start the story from slavery. In other words, slavery was going to do it for us. Whatever was supposed to happen would happen because we were enslaved in Mitzrayim. And that's the Gnut. The Gnut is we needed that. We needed that time in Mitzrayim in order to become the nation that could be that could receive the Torah. I mean, you can't be a receiver of something like the Torah unless you're worthy of it. And what made the people worthy of it apparently was the slavery in Mitzrayim, which we could get back to. But the second answer to the question is that somehow we came from a world of Avodah Zarah. And that had to be changed. That had to be knocked out of us. We had to become free of the chains of our own inheritance. After all, we were the children of Ovdei Avodah Zarah. And we are the ones who had to become, again, worthy of receiving the Torah. And certainly that meant dissociating ourselves from Avodah Zarah. But what is true about these two things? The two answers to the question that was never asked. How did Am Yisrael become Am Yisrael? Another interesting point about these two answers is that they are not based on psukim. They're not part of the story in the Torah, which leads me to think that we have to be able to understand something, to really understand. So we have to understand it in our language. Understanding it in the language of the Torah is a higher level of understanding. But the more elementary level, the level that can be understood by the banim, by the children, that level of understanding does not include Torah. So we have two answers to the question that hasn't been asked. The third answer begins with it's a drasha. It's about Torah. Once you've got the basic elements of the story in hand, you can get to the way the Torah tells the story, the way we explain the Torah is telling the story, which is contained in the pasuk of Arami Oved Avi, where every single word is darshaned, is explained in the Torah manner of things, which represents a higher level of understanding of the words of the Torah. So again, the points that I made tonight against the opposition of my computer, the points that I've made tonight are the question that we think that we should be asking was not asked. The question of what we are doing here, why did we need Mitzrayim, and why did we need Yetziat Mitzrayim? I mean, all of that is not asked, but the answer to that question is given in two different ways by Rabbi Shmuel. Avadim Ayuda Leparo Mitzrayim is the first answer. Mitchila Obdei Avodah Zarah Yavadim is the second answer. Neither of those answers are based on psukim or Torah. There's like the elementary answers are connected to a feeling, something that could be understood by children, something that could be understood by all the people who are at the Seder table. Once that understanding comes into being, and there's no reason to think that Rabbi and Shmuel are disagreeing about anything. They just said, I mean, it could be that the way the Haggadah presents it is that you have to do this one and you have to do that one. You have to understand it this way, understand it that way, because after all, things are not easily understood without getting down to the bottom of things. Okay. So I'm taking this opportunity to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, Chag Kasher V'Sameach. And after Passover, we'll get together again, and hopefully we'll be able to make peace with the computer program. All the best to you. Be well.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Have a Chag Kasher V'Sameach.
Thank you.